it's Tony from the Sup Company, and we're here to run through the all-new Starboard All Star with a very special guest. This is the Starboard All Star 2024 and 2025 model, but not just me, Michael Booth. Mate, thanks for coming across. Thanks for joining us. The reason why Michael's here is we haven't moved the shop to Australia or anything along those lines. I'd love to, but not just yet. Clinics, Michael Booth Clinics. Michael has been with us for the last day or so, delivered a really good clinic last night, hugely popular. If you get the opportunity out there to go on one of them, please do. I thoroughly recommend it. Everyone takes away so much from it. And yeah, thanks again for last night.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been great to come back down to the Sup Company down here in Southampton at Woodmill Lane and be able to, deliver these things I'm quite passionate about with booth training and, be able to share my knowledge to either the next generation or to the next group of paddlers coming through. What
was really interesting last night is while there was a load of new people there for the clinic, when you've been with us a couple of years ago, there's a few people in there back for almost like a little bit of a refresher and a bit of a tune-up, which, I was surprised to see, but obviously really happy to see as well, that it's still got that draw and appeal to those that are an intermediate to a good, strong paddler, to those that are also starting out on their journey as well.
It's always good to have that, refresher course and come back and learn the same things again, try and get that fine tuning. And you sort of saw that yesterday and over the weekend, seeing lots of different people from, previous years coming down and trying it out. I think it's probably my third, fourth or fifth year, I think, coming to the UK and doing clinics. And people still like coming down and seeing me do them. And I like meeting all the paddlers from all the different local communities as well.
It's great to see you give back as well. And you can also follow up with the coaching online as well, can't you?
Yeah, just michael-booth.com.au and /booth training, and you can find out all your different coaching services, whether it's personalised training, video analysis, or anything you like to do.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks. So look, onto the board. The Starboard All Star has had some refinements, some big changes in terms of the tail and so on as well. How are you finding the board? How are you getting on with it?
I'm finding this board really excellent. It's a big step up from 2023. I think, especially the refinements with the tail, the ability to be able to move your fin in the box. I think it allows a lot more maneuverability, a little bit through the front, lessening the volume, a little bit through here, but I'm sure you're going to go through in steps.
Yeah, so you might have seen a video or two of ours, but yeah, we tend to like and start with the nose and work our way down to the tail. So there's not a huge amount of change in the nose itself and the volume and how it's distributed through the board. You always got the overall standout aesthetic that, Starboard boards are pretty recognisable on the water with the really bold orange nose cone. But it's really the standing area and how this has kind of been carved out, this area, and removing the weight and creating a bit more space. How's that for you as a rider?
Well, I think just removing that weight is a good idea because there's no real reason to have it there. It doesn't actually add anything to the board. It's not adding stiffness. It's not adding any more movement or flex in the board. So by removing that, just takes about that 500 grams out, makes the board a little bit lighter, and it allows you to put more stiffness or more volume in different places, so allow the board to manoeuvre a little bit better in all those different conditions it's made for.
And in terms of water getting in the cockpit now, initially I think people will be forgiven to thinking that it's actually more prone to filling, but you get these EVA deflectors with it. Are you tending to use those on your boards?
The All Star has a lot of volume at the front of the nose, so generally, unless it's in quite big condition, 15 knots plus in the ocean, punching through waves, I won't put it on, but it's definitely something that I've been using for years on all my different boards, so it's definitely something that's an addition and a great tool that you can use.
Oh, nice. And then in terms of the main standing areas to where you actually are now doing a lot of work, it's got slightly wider, they've tuned the inside of the standing area, and the drainage has improved greatly as well.
Yep, so by having that second scupper hole, it allows you just to drain a lot faster, less movement a lot across the board. When you do get water on the board and it starts to slosh around, you do sort of feel it, especially in those dugouts. So being able to remove that board, water twice as fast, it's going to allow you to be a lot more smoother through the water.
Yeah. And the narrower widths, how are you finding those?
So I actually raced the 20.5 in Austria on the weekend, and I thought it was fantastic. The stability of the board is amazing, actually. You know, using the 21.5 at Worlds last year and the 21.5 at Carolina, and then going to Austria and using the 20.5, and really using it because I was going to be in draft trains. I was going to be in messy water behind different competitors. I wanted something that would allow me to be nice and still, nice and controlled, and allow me to have a good top end speed towards the back end of the race.
So if you could choose a board, a width, is there a width that you would look to stick to kind of going forwards, or is it really you get the opportunity to kind of vary the width based on the conditions?
I think I would be using, well, just based on what I've used this year and last year, the back end, I would use the 20.5 or the 21.5. 21.5 I'm going to be using in Barcelona on the weekend, where it's a little bit more messy, a bit more rolly, a bit more movement in the water. So hopefully that's the right ball for the day.
Oh, cool. And then the rest of the standing areas, we work our way back down to the tail. It's really been, that transition has been smoothed out quite a lot. There isn't that kind of almost a step up in a sense. How's that now in terms of footwork and getting your way back down to the tail end of the board?
So I'm really liking it. I think even having this little chime through the centre line, it really, when I'm turning my foot and stepping back, I can really feel where my foot placement is. And, you know, stepping through the centre, even when you are doing your step back turns, you can really feel where your feet is all the time in between the pads and, you know, following this white line all the way back. And it is a nice smooth thing. So especially for someone like me who likes to do cross steps and tries to keep things quite rhythmic as he's turning, it's really nice to be able to have good flow coming back, good flow coming forward, and there's not a lot of roll and rock as you move doing those movements.
Oh, cool. And the tail, I mean, there's obviously a big change in the tail this year. How is it for stability when you are running through those turns?
So I'd say that's the biggest improvement from the previous years. Having a team like has a little bit less volume, it's a bit more rounded, but it turns a lot faster, like really a lot faster, a lot more easy, and it's actually more stable when you're back there. So as far as the biggest improvement on this board, I would say the tail is the biggest change. It also seems to release the water a lot better. So when you're catching bumps, when you're trying to get towards someone's draft, or you want to change direction, the tail is really allowing you to release and move to where you want to be.
Oh, cool. And in terms of the volume distribution within the tail, is that allowing you to just sink the tail slightly more, or?
I think so, yes. So when I notice when I'm getting back, you can sink the tail more easily without having to put so much weight on that back foot.
Oh, nice. So look, let's take the board and roll it over onto its rail so we can see the underside, because there's some refinement and changes on the underside in there. So then on the underside of the board, it seems to be the overall concave shape. They've seemed to kind of reduce a little bit, this double concave. It's slightly, a little bit flatter, but there's nice big rounded rails on the chines here. How are you finding that?
Well, I think the more you have the round rails rather than this really sharp square rails, you're going to find that you're not as twitchy in that sort of side chop and messier conditions. So it does seem to roll, and that's where I think you're getting that additional stability. Like I think I was mentioning to you before, using the 20.5 on the weekend, I was quite surprised, especially in the technical race, how stable it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's due to that sort of more rounded edge. You do sort of feel that sort of double concave as you're going through the board, but it's obviously, since the previous version's been flattened out a lot. And I think that difference between, you know, going too fast and not having enough stability, they're trying to find that more happy medium, and I think that's why it's a really good all-round board at the moment.
So it's made it slightly more predictable then ultimately as well?
Yeah, I think so.
And a question for you before we move on to the other parts of the board. So this is your option for flat water?
Yes, depending on what the race is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm doing something like 11 cities, maybe like the Yukon or something where you're paddling by yourself and you're paddling long distance and you haven't got really draft trains and that to deal with, I'd say the Sprint's the go-to. But for basically everything else, I would be using the All Star.
Right. Okay.
Unless it's wave conditions, then I would be using the Jenna.
Yeah.
So it's very specific things that I'll be using the Jenna or the Sprint for, but the All Star would be my go-to board for pretty much every race. So back to the board, the scuppers. I was really surprised as to how pronounced they are within the board. Can you run through as to why that is? So generally, and I'm no, I don't know, water engineer or anything like that, but from what I understand, when the water's coming out, there needs to be somewhere for the vortex to run out, and if it is flat, the water's not going to release, it's actually going to hold there, because the water's not going to be able to, if you can imagine the water's coming out like this, if the water's flat here, it's not going to be able to release because there's water running across here. So they have to be pronounced, and so the water can release quite quickly.
Okay, so that's basically ultimately just improving the drainage overall.
Yeah, it's improving the drainage, and it's also, you know, being carbon now rather than the plastic versions that they had in the previous models.
Yeah.
It's a big improvement.
Yeah, and it is a huge, but those plastic ones were, I don't know, it just seemed a little bit of an afterthought from Starboard side of things, to be honest with you. And it is nice to see that they are a proper thought out venture which is actually integral and part of the board now.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see. The fin box though has got longer.
Yep. So what I really like about that is when you're able to move the fin. So for me, if you move the fin forward, which is I'm not going to be able to do like this, but if you're moving the fin forward to the front end of the fin box, you're going to be able to maneuver a lot more easily, so you can turn quickly around those buoy turns, or if you're downwinding, you want to be able to steer into those bumps a little bit more. And then to track more straight, if you're doing a long distance sort of flat water race, then you bring your fin all the way to the back.
Yeah. So really to have that option and that flexibility is kind of allows you to tailor the All Star a little bit more to the conditions that you're running in as well.
To the conditions and to the user.
Yeah.
So having those little bit of things that you can maneuver around, it allows you to, you know, just tailor the board to you a little bit more.
Yeah, no, cool. Well, look, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to shoot a video with us and talk through the All Star. If you are after demoing the All Star, then it's going to be here in our test centre in Southampton for the whole year in a couple of variations of width as well. But Mike, thanks very much.
Thanks, Tony.
Cheers. Thank you,
for having me on.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for watching our video. If you've got any questions about what you've seen, why not give us a call in the shop or head over to thesupco.com. To stay up to date though with all of our videos, well, make sure you subscribe up here and hit the notification bell. But to see our next video, well, take a look up here.